Hey YouTube, it's Evan Magician 34, and I've got my Regionals June 4th Arlington deck. I'm going to go ahead and get into it. This is more or less kind of the frog deck I've been running previously, but I made some key changes because of Extreme Victory, and the side deck changed around, and the extra deck changed around too. So it's worth taking a look at. It's 3 Treeborn Frogs, yes, 3, you really do need them. Because Treeborn Frog is pretty much a must for the deck, and there are lots of outs to Frog, but Treeborn Frog isn't out to himself, so 3 just maximizes your chances of hitting it. Also ways to discard it, like 3 Fishborg Blasters, and he's a little difficult to get to, and I don't run Gen X Undyne in this build, so you definitely need the actual blaster times 3. 3 Swap Frog likes to pitch Fishborg out of your hand, but he also pitches other stuff, and of course he puts Treeborn into your grave, and that's important. He also gets Ronin Toadine into your grave. 1 copy of Ronin Toadine. And 1 copy of Dupe Frog. He's a good 2-star to put into your grave for Junk Synchron, who we're going to get to in a little bit. And also he's a great first turn set. He can block a lot of the 1900 and 1700 point stuff like Thunder King, Reborn Tengu. And of course he'll also search for your Swap Frog or your Treeborn if you need it. In terms of things we can get out off of Treeborn Frog, we've got 3 copies of Kai's the Shadow Monarch. Still an excellent card, one of the best removal cards still. Plus 2400 points of damage, doesn't suck. 2 copies of Rise of the Storm Monarch, great at killing Synchros. And we had been running Mobius before, but I switched him out for a very good card that very few people have taken note of so far from Extreme Victory, but he's an excellent card. Salvage Warrior. He's a 5-star Water Warrior, in case you didn't know, with 1900 attack and 1600 defense. And when he's Tribute Summoned, so he's just like a Monarch, when he's Tribute Summoned, he gets a tuner out of your grave and just Special Summons it. You can Special Summon any tuner out of your grave in any position. So basically this 5-star guy gets your Fishborg Blaster, or he gets your Formula Synchron, or he gets your Junk Synchron, and syncs for anything on level 6, 7, or 8. He's just excellent that way. Plus he's water, so you can use him to pitch for Swap Frog if you need to. Really good card. We're also running 1 copy of Dark Dust Spirit still. We've got 2 copies of Junk Synchron, and we're also running 1 copy of Tuning in this deck, so you can search him out. He's a great way to pull all kinds of tricks. He can also get Formula Synchron, but of course he can't sync with it. But he also pulls like Swap Frog, Dupe Frog out of your grave. Good syncing there. We're running 1 copy of Unknown Synchron. He's good to search for, plus he's a one-shot Cyber Dragon out of your hand. Essentially, if your opponent has monsters and you don't, you can drop him on the field, and he's too small to get bottomless and whatnot. We're running him over TG Striker because we can search for him, basically. And 1-star is very good because you can sync him with Treeborn Frog to make Formula Synchron. We're also running Gores, the Emissary of Darkness. Just a good way to respond to attacks. It can build sweeping victories, and he's another good reason for Unknown Synchron, because if you have Unknown in your hand, you can normal summon him on the next turn to sync with the token or with the Gores itself for 8 stars. Something you can't do with TG Striker. We're just running 2 copies of Battle Fader. We're slimming the deck to 40, so we only run the 2. If you want, you can run 3 Battle Faders instead, but I prefer just the 2. The consistency over just the hitting the Fader. Monster Reborn. 1 for 1. Tuning. You can mill something like a Frog or a Fishborg off of this if you're lucky. But you don't mind having stuff in your grave because we run Pot of Avarice. Basically, it's just to get your Unknown Synchron or your Junk Synchron and thin your deck a little bit. Foolish Burial. Dark Hole, of course. Still running our 2 copies of Pot of Avarice. And needless to say, we're running 3 copies of Enemy Controller. It's basically just a free quick play brain control with Treeborn Frog, but it can also be a good response to your opponent doing something to your guys too. Be careful. You can set it sometimes, it just depends. Read your opponent well before setting it. We're also running we're also running Giant Trunade. 2 copies of Mystical Space Typhoon. And 2 copies of Malevolent Catastrophe. This is an excellent card, especially Game 1. They do not see it coming. The card advantage you can build off of one of these well-timed is just amazing. And sometimes you might even set 2. I know it sounds crazy, but if you're about to make a big play, this can prevent MST from messing you up. But you gotta play it correctly, basically. Make the judgment. Alright, that is the main deck. And we'll go ahead and go on to the extra deck first, before we go to the side deck. We're running 1 copy of Shooting Star Dragon, 1 copy of Trishula, Dragon of the Ice Barrier, 2 copies of Stardust Dragon to make sure we can get into Shooting Star, 1 copy of Scrap Dragon, 1 copy of Colossal Fighter. We're not running the Armory Arm. He kind of gets in the way and the extra deck's really tight. But the reason we're running him is because Monarch plus Formula Synchron during your opponent's turn, sinking into this guy can block some otherwise rather disastrous opposition. So he's a good option there. Black Rose Dragon. Ancient Sacred Wyvern. This guy's easy to make because of Formula Synchron. You can even salvage Warrior straight into this. So he's your alternative 7-star of choice to Black Rose. Bryanak, Dragon of the Ice Barrier. Gaianite, the Force of Earth. He's still just a good 6-star beat stick. That's the reason he makes the cut. Ally of Justice Catastor. Junk Warrior. Played correctly, this guy can be amazing, but he can also be a stepping stone to a bigger Synchro if you need. And, of course, we're running 3 copies of Formula Synchron. This guy's quite good, as if you didn't know. Alright, moving on to the extra deck. We're running 2 copies of Effect Veiler. Good side in. 2 copies of DD Crow, because a lot of decks, especially in the mirror match, do not like this. And for the ever-prevalent Samurais, 3 copies of Puppet Plants. Do be careful of Defissure with this, but it's still quite good. And speaking of things that are good against them, 2 copies of Kinetic Soldier, an amazing set. They almost always end up attacking the set instead. They have a hard time dealing with this guy. Running 2 copies of Snowman Eater. He's good against a number of decks, including GBs. And he's also water, which doesn't hurt. And a new side-in that's actually quite useful is General Raiho of the Ice Barrier. A lot of people completely overlook this guy, but just because he's got Ice Barrier in the name and he's not a Synchro doesn't mean he's bad. He's got a static effect. It doesn't activate or anything, which gives you some advantages. He's 21-23, 6-star, just a 1 tribute guy. But as long as this guy's face up on the field, whenever your opponent activates any monster effect, when it's resolving, they either discard a card or it gets negated. So this guy's amazing in the mirror match against frogs, but he doesn't hurt your own stuff. And there are a number of other matchups where he's quite useful too, like Karkuris and whatnot. So just a really good side in. I mean, you have to side him in intelligently, but played correctly, this guy is devastating. Good especially if you're going first that game. We're also siding Burial from the different dimension. This basically just counters what they're going to side in to remove your frogs from play. And we're also running Return from the different dimension because it's basically another copy of Burial, but it can also lead into some really big sweeps for game. Okay, now that's the deck. But I'm also going to tell you about the matchups I had. 238 people showed, and out of all that, I came in 17th with this deck. 6-2, and my only losses were pretty significant. First deck I played was Karkuris. It was straight Karkuri. When it goes off, it's really powerful, and it's difficult to argue with the sweep. He got a really good hand in Game 1, but I managed to take him out in Games 2 and 3 because he didn't have the God Hand. And if you don't God Hand in Karkuris, it's kind of hard to kill somebody, and they also don't like Battle Fader, needless to say. I played Sam's round 2. It was tough, but Sam's actually have not the best matchup against frogs. I've yet to lose a match against 6 Samurais, believe it or not. So that kind of ran true to form. I mean, it was a good match. None of my opponents were bad at all at the regionals. They were all pretty good players, or excellent players. So, I mean, it was a tough match, but still, ended up taking him out. And round 3, I met one of the 2 people who beat me all day, Worms. The deck is a really hard matchup, basically because it sets a million back rows, and if I don't see my MT Destruction, which I didn't see hardly any of it, I didn't see Trunade, MST, or Malevolent Catastrophe. 5 outs in my main deck. Didn't see those game 1 or 2. And of course he sided into Gozen match, and he also sided into Rivalry of Warlords game 2, and he had 2 of these set in game 1, so I mean, it was a horrible massacre. Not much I could have done about that. It's not a good matchup for me anyway. So, I lost there. That puts me at 2-1. Round 4, I go against Vayu Blackwings. It was Vayu Turbo. It was good, but bottom line, just outplayed him, and frogs are just a really broken deck anyway right now. So, beat that, 3-1. Going into round 5, Samurais again. Same story as before. It was a tougher opponent, a tougher match, but I still ended up taking him out. The kinetics helped me a lot. Kinetic Soldier is quite good in this matchup. So, round 5, win that one, so I'm 4-1. Going into round 6, it's Tengu, but this is like a Chaosy Tengu. It's a good deck, but it's a slower opponent, so that gives me more time to set up, and that enabled me to end up powering through and just beating him down. He also made a crucial misplay that was pretty bad, and that pretty much cost him the last game. But anyway, I was pretty sure I had it because I had a Crow. Basically, he misplayed his Debris Dragon and tried to sink it with a Tengu. But I would have had him anyway because of Crow in hand. So, now I'm 5-1, feeling pretty good. Going to round 7, it's X-Sabers, kind of a surprise, because game 1 I took him really quickly, I just had the perfect hand. Never even saw what he was playing, cited a few things, and then I thought he was running Tengu actually, and then I found out, oh no, you're running Sabers, because all I saw was one super nimble Mega Hamster before I killed him in game 1. But anyway, so it's Sabers, basically same story, the deck's a little on the slow side, good side deck, winning game 1 so quickly helped a lot. Win that one. So I'm 6-1 going into the last round, and I play against Tengu again. And he just had a really good hand, plus he was main decking 3 copies of Effect Veiler, which was pretty awesome tech. And so, I mean, good games, both of them, and they got kind of close, but in the end he pulled it out, so it was 6-2. But what can I say? I lost to good people, played good matches, and had a really fun day. And in the end, that's all that really matters, and that's what counts. So, anyway, till next time, rate, comment, subscribe, and check out my channel for more cool videos.